Hi, and welcome to the Virgin River Rewatch podcast. Good afternoon, Gigi. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, thank you. Just trying to stay cool in the good California sun.
Nice. What are you drinking today in the cafe?
I am surprisingly having, which I'm usually having something hot. Today I'm having something cold. I am having an iced espresso with
Nice.
with two shots.
2 shots. Well, you're going to need them.
Yes,
It's
I am.
it's one of those kinds of episodes
Yes, it
from
is.
start to finish. I'm sorry to say. Today I'm going with I'm trying to find my zen. I'm not drinking tea, so don't,
Oh
relax.
no, I didn't expect that.
I'm just gonna have simple cold brew with some sweet cold foam, a little bit of vanilla flavoring. We're just gonna keep it simple because we're
Sounds
gonna we're gonna
delicious.
we're gonna breathe. We're just gonna breathe. Okay. All right, and let's get started.
Season 1, episode 10, Unexpected Endings.
Ooh, this one's a tough one. I hope you're ready. So this one, the description says Charmaine tells a stunned Jack to make a decision while Mel is left reeling and Hope is filled with guilt. Paige opens up to Preacher. That says it. That doesn't even say enough. It doesn't say enough. There's so much. This episode is so much. All right, so we're going to start the episode with it looks like Jack and Charmaine are sitting in some little diner, cafe, something or another, probably in Clear River because Jack, he doesn't want to bring Charmaine to town if he can avoid that at all costs.
Well,
So,
he's just gotten the letter, so now he has to go to her anyway because
oh
she
yeah.
doesn't she doesn't want to talk to him. So he's got to confront her and figure out what the hell's going on.
And
So,
she must have
you know,
agreed to sit down and talk to him
mhm.
because here we are sitting in a
And so he
diner.
exactly, and he basically says, "How long have you suspected?"
And
And
well, first, are you sure? Because I mean, and she said yes. She talked to her doctor. She suspected for a couple weeks. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, this is something that I was thinking about. And if
this,
she's known for a couple weeks,
mm-hmm,
so we know Mel's been in town for about a month, okay?
mm-hmm.
And a couple weeks in, when would that have happened? I'm trying to think of at what point would she a couple weeks could she have been pregnant? I mean, the last time they were together was
Yeah,
right before like Mel had just gotten to town. So we're looking at like 3 weeks. So yeah, she could have like literally just found out.
right, exactly.
Okay. So she's like, "Look, I didn't expect this." And she basically shares with him that it's probably the last chance she'll ever have to be a mother because these two are not we are not talking about people in their 20s.
Oh no, no, no,
Okay?
no. No. These are people
She's
in
yeah, he's in his mid 40s.
yeah, and she's probably in her either late 30s or early 40s.
I would suspect that she's younger than him. So
Yeah,
I'm going to guess mid to late 30s would be like my guess. I know the character on the show, I mean on the in the books is about 44 45, so I think that they kind of kept that theme. I think on the show Jack is supposed to be around 45, that Mel is supposed to be a little bit younger than him. So I suspect that Charmaine is mid to late 30s as well, just kind of the same age as Mel. So she's saying, I mean, this is could be her last chance to have a baby. And she explained in the letter that she wishes things were different. She still loves him. She wants to be with him. And I think in a way she's like hoping that maybe this would change his mind. And he's like, "Well, what are you asking me?" And she's like, "Is she all alone in this situation?" And of course, he's a stand-up guy. He's like, "Look, I'll support you. I'll support the baby." And she's like, "No, that is not what I'm asking." And you know what she's asking.
oh hell yes. She girlfriend is looking for a permanent daddy for her
Well, she doesn't
relation.
want just a daddy. She wants a man,
Yeah,
and
she
she wants
wants a
him.
that ship is sailed, honey.
Yeah.
That ship is deal.
And
And so,
he's like, look, this is a lot to take in. I need a minute. And she's like, okay, that's fair. She just wants to get out of there. She's got to get out of there. She has to go back to work. I mean, this is probably before her shift. She has to tell him, I still love you, Jack. And the brow furrow in his face is...
I know, it's so sad. He looks like a lost puppy.
He really
It's
does.
just,
He's like, oh my God, this is not... I mean, he never, in a way, it's like, I don't think he ever thought he would, one, find a woman that he really, really cared about, and two, be a father. Like, these were things that were not in his thoughts.
yeah.
I don't think it was something.
And the problem is, he's found a woman to love, but it's the wrong woman having the baby.
Right. Like, if Mel would have came to him that day, obviously they haven't done anything to make that situation happen, but he would be in a different place, because he actually has feelings for Mel. Whereas Charmaine was just something to do in between time, somebody to hang out with. Poor Jack. Poor Jack. I mean, I feel bad for Charmaine because she knows he doesn't love her. I mean, she wants him to love her, but she knows he doesn't. That's why they're not seeing each other anymore. So it just makes a really bad situation.
But what I find interesting is, okay, she writes the letter to tell him about the pregnancy. And basically in the letter, she's telling him, he has no obligation.
Right.
Now he's sitting in front of her and she's looking for an obligation. I'm a bit...
And she doesn't want just take care of me and the baby. She wants a whole thing. She wants all of it. She wants the kit and caboodle. Yeah. So basically she lied in the letter. She wasn't genuine. Let's put it that way. She wasn't genuine in the letter. She wrote what she felt she needed to tell him, but the reality was very, very different.
Exactly.
Hope is walking down the street. She is strutting down the street, I should say.
Well, exactly. And what I love about the scenery is there's no sidewalk because they're out in the middle of nowhere. This is not a place where there's sidewalks. There's no such thing as sidewalk.
No.
So she's just walking along the side of the road, and girlfriend is just strutting her stuff. She sees Jack's car and she's waving him down.
Like he doesn't see her. The two of them are the only ones on the road, and she's waving at him like he's got blindfolds on or something. And he pulls over and he talks to her, and she was like, "Oh, I'm late getting to dock. I have you talked to Charmaine?" And he was like, "Look, I know it's hard for you to stay out of everybody's business, but reading that letter crossed the line. I mean, even for Hope, that crossed the line because that was pretty bad." And he goes, "I thought Charmaine was gonna do something or say something, and I was protecting you, and I could have protected you. I could have thrown the letter out." And he's like, "Whoa, wait a minute, that's not your letter to toss. You have no right." And of course, she jumps to, "Have you told Mel? Does Mel know?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'm on my way to talk to her right now." And she wants to give him advice, and he looks at her and he was like, you need to stay out of my business. That's your job right now. Please, just stay.
And he's very pissed.
Very firm about it.
Yeah, he's just not happy at this point.
Yeah.
So we're now at the cabin, and Mel is making pancakes, and she's talking to her sister Joey, who has the dog. And it's one of those I like to call the little yap yap dogs.
And her sister tells her that she's in the middle of a divorce with her husband Bill, and that Bill wants the dog. And Mel is shocked. She's like, "Wait a minute. I thought you guys were in counseling." It's like, he wants the dog, and now he's dating his assistant. And she's like, "Kimberly?" It's like, oh, God, no. Yeah, this is a guy. That was 2 assistants ago. Yeah, Kimberly is probably 22 and...
Exactly. If that much.
Yeah.
If that much.
Oh my gosh. So yeah, that was 2 assistants ago. And she's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry." She's like, "Look, I am not giving up my dog. He wants to take my marriage, fine, but you're not taking my dog. I have standards."
The yap dog will travel.
Yes. So Mel shares
that she has been out with Jack. She went out to dinner with Jack, and she, and her sister's like, "A date?
Wow, you were just talking to him, and she's like, "Wow, that's a really big step." And she's like, "Yeah, this is where it comes out. I haven't been on a date with anyone other than Mark in 6 years. So yeah, it's been a really long time." And so she's hoping that she had a good time. And she's like, "Yeah, I did." And that makes Joey happy because she knows how hard Mel has had a really rough year. And she says that she really likes him, and she could see that he likes her too, because she met him. She was there at the bar. And then she starts kind of comparing him to Mark. And she's like, wait a minute. No. This isn't about Mark. This is what he would want. He would want you to move on. He would want you to be happy. You need to embrace that. It's okay to be happy. It's okay to move on. Of course, she's like, wait, are you crying? Why are you crying? She's like, if you don't stop crying, I'm going to start. And then there's a knock at the door. She tells her sister she'll call her back. And in walks Jack.
And he looks so somber.
Yeah.
And
her focus is pancakes. Her focus is pancakes. Hey, what kind of chocolate do you want? Do you want semi-sweet? Do you want dark? Chocolate pancakes. And he's like perplexed. And he's like, what? And she's like, oh, do you not like pancakes? And he's like, no, I love pancakes. And then he tells a little white lie.
Yes, he does.
He something like the delivery guy broke down and he called him and he has to go pick it up.
Right. But my question is, where between talking to Hope and him getting there that he chickened out in telling her what happened? I don't think she said anything to make him not. Unless the pancake conversation threw him off.
No, I don't think it was that. I think he had every intention of going there, and I kind of feel like running into Hope because it kind of, I feel like it made it more real by talking about it with Hope. Like he had it in his mind, and if he hadn't run into Hope, he probably would have shown up there and talked to her. But because he talked to Hope, it's like he had to say it out loud. Like they talked about it, like, like you're gonna go tell Mel and and it's like it made it so much more real that he's like, I need to ponder this for a minute. Like, I need a minute. Like, he just needed a minute. Maybe he wants to be able to tell Mel in a way that doesn't ruin whatever it is they're starting. And maybe that wasn't enough time to think about the right thing to say. Because he's very careful about his words. He chooses his words very carefully, and he's very passionate about when he talks about things. So I feel like that threw him running into Hope, and maybe he needed a little more time.
Yes, so I just think when you put things off, there's always disaster waiting.
And we're gonna prove that. We're gonna prove that in all kinds of ways. So she's like, okay, you have to go pick up an order that. Okay, so no pancakes, and she's got everything made. She had the table set. She had French press coffee waiting. Everything was ready, and
so she's disappointed, as you can tell.
Super disappointed. She's like, but she's like questioning the disappointment. It's almost like, So now we're back at the clinic, and Hope had to run to talk to Doc.
Yes, and he asked her if she wants coffee.
Oh, she stopped at the bakery truck, and she ran into Connie, who has now shared that she has a niece from LA who got in trouble and turned into a bit of a wild child, and that she might have to come live with Connie. Because maybe some country living is what she needs to straighten her out. And Doc
just bored teenager to death.
Yeah, I know. So, she got herself arrested for shoplifting, and so, of course, Hope thinks that's hysterical that Connie might have to take in a teenager. Like, could she really handle that?
So now she's now, and then she does the one thing that Doc tells her he doesn't want to do is get involved.
Yes.
She basically says she ran into Jack and he is going to tell Mel about the baby. And the look on Doc's face is like,
what baby? Like, what? And she goes, if I tell you, you can't tell anyone. It's like, no. Let's keep it that way. Don't tell me. She goes, Charmaine is pregnant with Jack's baby.
Yeah, that's the whole thing. He says to her, don't tell me. And she turns around and tells him, Charmaine. It's like she could not help herself.
No, she can never help herself. And so he was like, oh, is that what the letter was about? And she's like, yeah. And I didn't see that coming. She goes, yeah, from the look on Jack's face, neither did he. Because, what's he going to do? And she's like, he's going to go tell Mel. And oh, that's going to be rough, and it's not going to be easy for Jack. It's not going to be easy for Mel. And he warns her, stay out of it. He invites her out to dinner, I think as a distraction. So he was like, well, let's go out to dinner. And he said, well, why aren't you calling me to to ask me. And he's like, I like to do things in person. And she's like, well, what kind of a meal is this? And where are we going? And he's like, stop analyzing everything. Just let's go to dinner. And so she, of course, has to ask a lot of questions. And he's like, Arthur's. Now, we know Arthur's because Mel and Jack were just there.
That's
and
right.
She's like, oh, well, fair warning. I'm going to order lobster and 2 desserts.
And she's not paying for it.
Not paying for it. Absolutely.
And then this is so sweet.
Yes.
Mel walks up to the clinic and right under Doc's name
on the plaque out front
is a cardboard cutout, Mel's name on it, and what she is.
A nurse practitioner. Yeah. So
It's
he's not going to put her name on the letterhead, but he'll give her a name on the door. So that's okay. I think she's okay with that. And I mean, it's very endearing. That makes her happy, which is so nice. That means that she's finally accepted by him, which is really, really good.
So she walks in and she sees Doc and Hope, and
he's like, she looks at the thing and she goes, oh, it's just a formality. And then she scolds Hope and she's like, wait, you're not supposed to be drinking coffee. And she's like, it's decaf. And she's like, really? And she's like, I don't trust doctors. She goes, yeah, well, I don't trust you. And she pours it down the sink.
Now, you notice this is the second time she's been caught drinking coffee.
I know. She doesn't care. She's going to do whatever the hell she wants. It's Hope. Come on.
That's pretty much Hope. It's just, you gotta love her.
Mel looks around and she's like, wait a minute. There's coffee? That means Doc had to make coffee. Wow. And he's like, yeah, don't get used to it. And then he gets a phone call and leaves the room. But she's like, wow.
And then here comes disaster. So at this point, Doc leaves and then Hope does this big, and she goes over and she hugs Mel and she says, the baby doesn't change anything. You guys will figure it out.
And Mel's like, baby?
And Hope,
what are you talking about?
What's going on? And she said, I thought you knew. Hope, what are you talking about? And she's like, Charmaine. And the look on Mel's face.
She's like, Charmaine's pregnant?
Exactly.
Just as Doc walks back in. And Mel's like, what?
Yeah.
And who told you? She's like, Charmaine? And Doc's like, Hope. She's like, well,
actually, I read it in a letter Charmaine asked me to give to Jack. And the thing about it is, you can tell at this point, Mel feels like she's been just sucked down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, she's been slapped in the face, punched in the gut, rug pulled out from under her. Name whichever one you like. They're all applied.
Phrase you want to use. And Doc is standing there basically going, oh my God.
Like, I can't believe you just did that.
Exactly. What I asked you not to do is what you just turn around.
Keep your mouth shut. That's all you had to do.
Yeah. And she could not help herself.
No.
At the same time,
a patient comes in. Yeah. Who's very sick. You can hear she's sick.
Yeah.
And Mel excuses herself. She's like, excuse me, I have a patient.
And then her excuse is, Jack told me he was going to tell her. And he says, did you not learn anything about what happened, what just happened?
Oh my gosh. And she's like, I have to hurry up. I have to go talk to Jack. She has to fix it. Like, now this is her problem. And Doc is like, oh my God.
Doc just doesn't know what to do.
Well, Doc now has to deal with the aftermath of all of this. Jeez, Hope.
Because the thing, he has been warning her ever since she opened the box.
Stay out of it. Just stay out of everything. Like, why?
Yeah. And that the same thing he was afraid of is the same thing that happened.
Yep, exactly what, like the worst possible scenario happened. So now we're back at Jack's bar and Paige shows up because remember, her and Preacher are supposed to have a conversation. And he explains to her, look, I just want you to know that I care about you and I'm not going anywhere. And she is trying to explain to him that he needs to understand that whatever happened, that she did not have a choice. And then she explains that it was her ex-husband, that he has a temper, he's abusive toward her. And then one night he went after Christopher and she was not going to have it. The police arrived and he is a detective and he lied. He had all his buddies back him up and they got the judge to say that she was the aggressor and she was the problem and he got custody of her son. And she's like, there's no way that I could let that stand. And the only thing she could think of was to run. And that's the only way she could protect her son. And he's like, I am so sorry. She's terrified that he'll find them and kill them both. I mean, he's mad. He was mad and he's already threatened to kill her a bunch of times. So Preacher is like, I am not going to let that happen.
And she says, they're very sweet, Preacher, but he's a police officer and he has the entire police force behind him. And I've got 10, and Preacher's like, I've got 10-year tactical training in the military to back me up.
Yeah.
So
that's equal. I would say that's equal playing field.
Yeah, exactly. But, it's the macho on the macho,
Yeah. Well, and he's very protective of, even though they don't really have a relationship.
Right.
So she asked for him to not share this news with anybody, even Jack. And she's like, well, he's like, I already told Jack. I had to tell someone, but he won't tell anyone. You can trust Jack. He's a good guy. They'll keep the secret. And it's kind of nice that somebody else knows, because Preacher needed somebody to talk to.
Definitely. He's holding her hand and she's got tears in her eyes, and
she's very appreciative that someone else is
she's
in on it.
Scared.
But scared, of course. Very scared.
So she says she'll talk to you later, and then in comes Hope like a hurricane in the bar, and she's looking for Jack.
Yeah, and Preacher's like, I don't know where he is, and she was like, I have to find him, and he's like, I don't even want to know what you're up to, and she's like, oh, you definitely do not want to know.
She says she's got to run to Connie's.
And
but
please let Jack know as soon as I need to talk to him face to face right away. He's like, is everything okay? And she's, oh God, I hope so. And she's distraught. I mean, Hope is usually very calm and cool and collected, but she's off her game today because she knows she screwed up really bad.
Oh yeah, she knows she is in deep doo-doo. Let's just say that.
Oh yeah.
And that's just, and she likes to be in control, and the fact that she is not in control,
that's not going over well with her. And she always wants to make sure that, she kind of knows kind of the disposition of everybody. And right now she does not know how Jack is feeling, and that is freaking her out.
Yeah, she's got a right to be freaked out because he already warned her in the car on the way to Mandy out of his business.
Yeah.
And she turned around and did the opposite.
Oh, she really stepped in it this time. So now we're back at the clinic, and Mel just finishes up with that patient, and she's kind of tidying up in the lobby, like in the waiting room, and she sees Doc, and she makes a comment about like, oh, these magazines are super outdated, you should, they're like 20 years old or whatever, and and he's like, well, magazines are expensive. She goes, really, not enough to make a difference. A penny saved is a penny earned. And she's like, you know what? Never mind. Forget it. Whatever. And he was like, oh, somebody's upset. She's like, I'm fine. I love it how he says, when a woman says I'm fine, she's definitely not fine. She assures him that she's fine. And he's like, yeah. In my experience, when you bottle up your feelings, it never does any good. And she's just sort of exacerbated, and she sits down and she's like, Jack should have told me. Which this is not a sit down heart-to-heart kind of guy. Like, he does not get involved, but he sits down with her, which is really sweet. And he's like, look, it's the message is more important than who told it. And she's like, well, you know what? Charmaine being pregnant, that it changes everything. And he's like, yeah, well, that's what's going on here. She's like, she doesn't even know what she's doing. I mean, she didn't come to Virgin River to start a relationship or anything. I mean, she came for a job and she came to escape her life. And he says, whenever you go somewhere new, there's always new. I mean, there's new everything. There's always a starting point of something. He's learned a lot in that month that she's been here, that got to get your feelings out in the open because otherwise people get hurt. So she's taught him a lot just in the month that she's been there. And he's like, maybe you guys will work it out. And she's like, yeah, but she reminds him, you would hope have like a long relationship. Jack and I don't have any history. We just met each other. So, but he's like, well, maybe you have a future. I mean, she can't even think past that, because how do you fall for somebody who you just found out got someone else pregnant? Like, most women would cut their losses and run. I mean, if you think about it.
So we're back at the bar again, and we have a rowdy group.
Mm-hmm. Fortunately, they're leaving.
Gentleman comes and he sits at the bar, and
Preacher's very hospitable. He's like, hey, so you stopping by, you passing through, and he was like, oh, I don't know. And he orders a beer, and he's asking about the pie, and Ricky's behind the counter, and he's like, yeah, let me get you some pie. And he was like, is that apple and with pears? He's like, ooh, my mother used to make it that way. My wife too. And Ricky kind of overshares, and he's like, oh yeah, Paige is a really good baker. He's like, oh, is she around here? Is she local? And he's like, oh yeah, just down the, and Preacher interrupts the kid. He interrupts Ricky, and he's like, oh yeah, I need you to go get some glasses or something, And Preacher's very suspicious because now his radar is up. Anything that has to do with Paige, his radar is up. And this guy who's just seems a little too curious about the pies and the pie maker, he's gonna get a little friendly. So, I don't think I caught your name. And he introduces himself because, you know, it's a small town and that doesn't seem unusual. And he's like, oh, my name's Paul. And he's like, so what do you know, what's going on? And he's like, oh, I think I'm just going to settle up and get out of here. You keep the change. I mean, he took one bite of his pie, one sip of his beer, and he's out of there. And he leaves from a different entrance that he came in. So he's going out the back way. And Preacher tells Ricky, I'll be right back. And he follows him.
My question is, how did he know to go out the back way?
Well, there's always a back way. There's probably an exit sign or something. And that's where he parked his car. So he purposely went in the front, but maybe so he could sneak out the back. That's what I'm thinking. And Preacher is doing his due diligence and gets a picture of the guy's license plate, just in case. He's suspicious. Preacher knows a guy, so he'll figure it out.
And Jack rise up.
Jack rolls up. So he had to go pick up the delivery because the guy's tow truck broke down, or the guy's truck broke down. And so here he is with the delivery. That's why he couldn't have breakfast with Mel.
So they're unloading it.
And Preacher's like, oh, Hope's looking for you. Is she okay? Like, what's going on with her? And he goes, Hope being Hope, right? Which is, that about sums it up.
Yes, basically sums it up. And as they walk in with the bears for the bar,
Brady arrives.
Yeah, a friendly neighborhood Brady walks in. And
they call him out right away. He's like, you're late. 3 hours late. And he's like, oh, I had stuff I needed to do. And Jack says, am I inconveniencing you with a job? That is like the best line.
That is the best line. I guess you really don't want the job. And then he talks back to Jack. Yeah. And then it's like Preacher steps in. It's like when he talked back to Jack.
Yeah.
It was like, oh no, you don't talk to Jack.
Yeah,
like
that's
that.
Not, I don't like your tone. No.
And it's like when your teenagers give you sass and basically you look at them with that look that goes, okay, back it up, Buttercup.
Yeah.
Almost get into a tiff.
Oh, yeah. Brady comes back at Preacher. Preacher comes back at Brady. They grab each other and Jack steps between them and he's like, no. And he's like, walk away. We're not doing this here. We're not doing this now. And Brady's had it. He's like, I'm done. And Jack grabs him and he's like, look, you walk away from me right now. You're done. Like, don't come back. Like, I've given you enough chances. I'm not giving you any more. And Brady's like, okay.
He doesn't even say it. He
nope.
says, so Jack.
So long, Jack.
Walks out the bar.
And that's it. He's done. Which is probably for the best at this point.
Brady reminds me of a teen.
Oh, totally.
You wouldn't believe that a man in, his early 30s.
Or he could be late 20s. I would say late 20s, early 30s. It's hard to say. He has such a young face.
I mean, he's acting like a 15-year-old when your parents say, I'm taking your phone or you're grounded. If you feel that way, well, tough luck. And, they storm out of the room, whatever it is, to go to their room. That scene is what that reminds.
Oh, yeah. And you'll be interested to know that he's 39 years old. When the show was starting to be filmed, which was 5 years ago, he was 34.
Okay. So, yeah, he's in his 30s. And
so Jack and Preacher have a little chat about it. And he's like, look, you're trying to save him. You're trying to fix the past. What happened in Mosul isn't your fault. What happened to Lonergan isn't your fault. You need to stop trying to save Brady. And then we go back to a flashback. And the flashback is that kid Lonergan who died in Mosul. And you can see Jack, who's also injured. He's got a large injury on his back and he's crawling to the injured kid, Lonergan. And they're just kind of huddled together next to a car, probably in the middle of battle.
Yeah, Lonergan's got blood all over him.
Oh, yeah. He looks like he's been shot in the chest. And Jack's telling him, you're going to be okay. You're going to be okay. And you can hear the helicopter. And the kid's like, promise. And he's like, I'm not going to leave a man behind. I mean, he's right there with him. Whatever happens, he's going to be right there with him and the kid dies. So at least he didn't die alone, thank God. But Jack sort of spaces and Preacher touches his shoulder and kind of brings him back. And he was like, look, you know what, Brady, he's gone. Leave it that way. Like, just let him be gone. Now, Jack's got a lot of stress right now. And Preacher's now worried. Normally, Preacher doesn't step in too much. He kind of lets Jack deal with his own. But he sees something's going on. And when Jack goes into the office and he sits down and he pours himself a drink and he's just running his hands through his hair, and Preacher goes in the office and shuts the door and he's like, dude, what is going on with you? Come on.
The fact that it's morning time and he's got a bottle in front of him with a glass. I don't know if it's whiskey or what it is.
Yeah, something.
Something's going on. And Preacher knows that that's not Jack, because that time of the morning.
Yeah, there must be something big going on if he's having a drink at that hour.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's true. It's 5 o'clock somewhere, but
but not Virgin River. So then he tells him, he's like, Charmaine's pregnant, and Preacher grabs himself a mug, pours himself a drink, and he was like, oh my God.
Yep.
Like,
so what are you
gonna do? And Jack, of course, haven't figured it out yet. And his first question is, have you told Mel? And he goes, and this is what I think. I need a day. He said he needs a day. He doesn't want to mess things up with her. And he needs to figure a way to tell her. And Preacher's like, okay, well, what does Charmaine say? And of course, Charmaine is like, well, she's still in love with me. And he's like, and you don't feel the same way? He's like, yeah, if I did, it would make this whole situation a heck of a lot easier.
Because he's never been in love with her.
No, never. And he's like, look, whatever you decide to do, I'm there for you, buddy. I got your back. And that's really, that's all anybody can do at this point. So Jack just needs to clear his head. He needs to figure this out. And Preacher's like, you know what? You do what you got to do. I'll keep an eye on the bar. And then we see Jack in the back behind the bar, just sitting on a log, thinking.
And then who should show running towards him but Hope? And she was like, I'm so glad you're here. She said,
I need to talk to you. I need to talk to you.
And she's like, I made a terrible mistake. And she's like, we already been over this. And she's like, no, it's something else.
And you're not gonna like it.
She says, I accidentally told Mel about Charmaine being pregnant. And the look on his face. And he's like, you what?
What?
And she's like, you told me you were gonna tell her. And he's like, I told you to stay out of my business. And he is like so mad.
And she's like, but in my defense, he's like, no, there is no defense. I said stay out. And she's like, but I wanted to help. And he's like, you're not helping me. How does this help me? And he just looks like he wants to cry at this point. Now, interestingly enough, in this scene, and I know this to be true because when people who either have an accent or speak a different language, when they get mad, their accent comes out.
Oh, yes.
And if you listen to this part, if anybody who's listening to this podcast, go back and listen to this scene, you can hear his New Zealand come out in this scene. I don't know why. It's just, there's certain words that sound a little differently than the American accent. And it's kind of funny, but you can hear his Kiwi coming out a little bit. So he's freaking out. And he just begs her to stop meddling in his life. And she just needs to stay out. And now Hope, the reality of what she's done has just become very clear to her. That Jack is done with her. And that is like a stab in the heart. Because like we've said, she treats him like she thinks of him as like a son. And to have him basically be done with her.
Yeah, reject her.
Is heartbreaking.
Yeah. So now they turn around for inside the bar and Mel walks in and Mel does not look happy.
And just as she's walking in the front door, Jack who's got Hope on his heels is walking in the back door. He's heading toward the office and Mel catches them. And she's like, I need to talk to you. And she sends a glare at Hope that if looks could kill, Hope would be laying on the ground right now.
Yeah, because Jack turns around and looks at Hope as well. And if there was a possibility of a whole swallowing Hope and covering her up, that's where 100%. She would be.
They go in the office, they shut the door, and Hope's just standing there like, oh my God.
But it's interesting. Her look basically, I don't know if her look is a look of, okay, they'll work it out, or is it
she just looks distraught. Like, I don't know what's going on behind. And you know her. If she could, she'd put her ear to the door.
Oh, yes. Oh, most
But
definitely.
She's going to stand her ground. She's going to stay right where she is, and she's not going to say a word. And she's just going to hope for the best. Because at what point? She doesn't have anything else to do at this point. I mean, she's distraught and she messed up big time.
She's caused enough trouble. That woman needs just to go home and get under the covers and just stay there. She's just, it's bad. It's bad. And she now tells him, why didn't you tell me? And he says, I should have told you.
So they get into the office. He shuts the door and Mel starts and he tries. He's like, look, I'm sorry. She's like, yeah, you should have told me. She's like, and then she goes into everything, all the self-doubt that she's probably thought she could put aside, all came rushing back, which is such a shame. She's like, I knew this was a mistake. I knew that I shouldn't have. What am I doing? And she's like, no, Mel, it's like, come on. And she's like, no. All of this, moving out here in the middle of nowhere, thinking that I could have just an ounce of happiness. And he's like, look, we're going to figure this out. She's like, look, there is nothing to figure out. You're having a baby with another woman. Like, for most women, that's a hard pass. I mean.
Oh, yeah, exactly. And it's not like she came to town and Charmaine was already pregnant.
Right.
And they were in a relationship. But the fact is.
That happened while she was there.
Exactly. So this is so traumatic for
and
her.
This is so new. Know? It's like, oh, and he's like, look, this does not change how I feel about you.
It's not too late, okay? And he's like, we can start whatever this is. And she's like, no, it's got to end. Jack senses that she wants to end this now, and he is terrified that he's going to lose her.
She's like, it's fine. I mean, we just started. They literally been on one date. She said, we just started and that's fine. We can end it. It's fine.
But what she doesn't understand is that he's been fascinated with her from the minute she walked into his bar.
Yeah.
So it's, she may think, oh yeah, they had one.
For her, she's like, I can end this right now. It's fine. We can be friends. We can move on. No problem. And he was like, I can't do that. And she's like, well, it's not up to you. And she storms out. And she's like, no. Just as she walks away, there's Hope staring at Jack, who just glares at her. And yeah, she messed up big time.
Big time.
It's bad. This is bad. I mean, she's done some things before, but this is probably the worst. Probably the worst. So we're back at Hope's house, and she's sitting in solitude in her living room by herself, very quiet. And Doc shows up all dressed up in his suit, ready for their dinner at Arthur's. He looks so handsome. Yeah. He does.
And she says, you're early. And he says, are you going to wear flannel with lobster?
Yeah, it clashes. And she's like, I don't want to eat. And he's like, what? You're passing up free lobster? And I think this is probably the first time that she is taking responsibility and owning up to what mess she has caused, because she's done a lot of stuff. I mean, she's meddled in people's lives before, but I think it hasn't affected things as badly as this.
But I think the thing about it is her relationship to the other people in the town is different than her relationship with Jack.
True.
Okay. So the point is, like when she was upset with the ladies at the circle,
circle.
These are women she's known almost half her life, most of them. The fact is that when she's upset with them and they have a fight, they kiss and make up and they move on. The fact is, this is like, as you know, as a mother, when you have a fight with your children, they are not so easy to forgive you. And it's a very different relationship.
Very different.
She's feeling that now because she is now being rejected by her so-called child.
Yeah.
Jack is her child. And she is feeling this to the bone.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
This is not like, this is a totally different rejection than what she feels with her girlfriends.
Or even circle. Doc, even Doc. I mean, he rejected her, or she rejected him, but they're still having some type of relationship.
Yeah,
but now, this is very different.
Yeah, it's been, the umbilical cord to some degree has been severed, and she is just and then she's devastated, and then she turns around and she says to Doc, "I'm sorry," and
like it finally hits her.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
What she has put him through.
Oh, yeah. He says, after refusing to accept your apology for the past 20 years. And she now knows what he felt. And you've tried over and over, and I wouldn't have it. And now I finally understand how bad it must made you feel, because now she's feeling what he's feeling.
She's never felt this kind of pain before. And Doc, Doc's like, look, I'm pretty tough. I dealt with it. It's fine. But
she says nothing's going to be okay, and she said, I made a mess. And Doc's like, Mel and Jack are going to work this out.
They'll have to figure it out. It's their problem. They're going to have to figure it out. And she's just worried that Jack will never speak to her again. And he's like, well, what if Mel leaves? And he's like, look, there's nothing you can do.
And she's in tears at this point.
Oh, yeah.
She feels awful, and
he's using this as a teaching moment. I love this for Hope's benefit and for Doc seeing that this is a pinnacle moment for Hope. He's finally telling her, look, maybe this time, of all the hundreds of times that you've meddled in people's business and you just kept doing it, maybe this time you'll let it sink in that what you do affects people, that you have to stay out of people's business. Even if you're trying to help, it doesn't matter. She didn't create the situation. It's between Mel and Jack and Charmaine, but she doesn't need to add fuel to the fire.
Exactly. She didn't help, because the point was she didn't give Jack the opportunity to say anything to Mel. That's why Mel said to Doc in the clinic, she wished he was the one.
He should have told me.
He should have told her.
And Doc is just reminding her, you have to let people figure their own business out. Like, it's not up to you to help them. I know you want to help them, and that's really great that you want to help people. But these are the things that people need to figure out for themselves. They have to find their own way. He tells her, I know how much Jack means to you, but it's Jack. He'll probably come around. And she's really nervous that she maybe took it too far. Maybe he won't come around.
She's afraid, right? She's afraid he's going to treat her the way she treated Vernon.
So he's reminding her that she has to do something that does not naturally come to her. I love that. He's so gentle, but he's definitely, this is a teaching moment for sure, that she has to let it go. Stay out of it. Let them figure it out. As much as Jack means to her, hopefully she means as much to him, and maybe he'll come around. She doesn't think so. She thinks that this might be just she went too far this time. She realizes that she pushes people away. That's what she does. That's what she's always done. And that finally she's gone too far.
Where she talks about Connie and the ladies at the circle, and she's pushed them away, and she's probably pushed Jack away as well. And at the same time, Vernon
Timing, Vernon, timing. He goes in his jacket and he pulls out a nice thick envelope and he shows it to Hope. And he was like, it's something that you've wanted for a really long time. And she looks at the envelope and she opens it up. And it turns out that he went to the lawyer and he drew up new divorce papers. He said they're newly drawn, executed, and fully paid. All it needs is her signature. Once she signs it, after she signs it and he files it, that's it. They're divorced. That's the end of it. That's what she's wanted for 20 years.
And he basically says divorce or married.
You can push as hard as you want. You can whatever you want to do. He's not going anywhere.
And the look on her face, it's just so sad. It's just,
and he's like, you haven't been this quiet for this long ever.
It's just so sad to, she is in so much pain and she is so unhappy.
And he's wondering if she's having another heart attack because she's not saying anything. And she just cries. She cries. I mean, this is everything she wanted. But in the same moment, she realizes that it's not. And he's like, are these tears of joy? And she just gets up and she's sobbing and she just leaves the room. It's just too much. It's like everything that she has done has now come to bite her in the butt.
To fruition. Here it is. Oh, my goodness.
Now we're back at the bar. Yeah. Preacher's bartender extraordinaire. And Ricky needs to head out. It's the end of his shift, and Preacher put some food together for him and his grandma, which is very sweet. I swear they feed so many people for free. I don't know how they make any money. So,
So
Preacher calls Paige just to check in, make sure everything's okay. Thought he would stop by after, things slow down at the bar. And, if she could just call him back. Just checking in on her. That's nice.
says thanks for the dinner, and he walks out, and Preacher back again. So apparently he gave the license plate number
to the sheriff. Mm-hmm.
Yes. So
he gives him a name, and it's not a name that he's familiar with. And he's like, "Are you sure?" And he's like, "Yeah, it's registered to this name, blah, blah, blah." And he's like, "Okay." So maybe he chalks it off as, "Oh, well, gonna worry about it. Must not be anything related."
Oh, and this scene. Oh, this scene is painful, but
necessary.
Yes, necessary. And I gotta say, Charmaine's got some chutzpah here.
I know she does.
So Mel is in Clear River.
Yep.
And walks into a cafe, and it's a beautiful cafe. And she turns around. Who should she run into? Charmaine.
Yep. So she just wants to get a decaf latte, and she's trying to order. She turns, and Charmaine is like, "Mel." And she goes, "Yeah, I was on my way back from seeing Lily and Chloe."
And let me tell you something. That smirk look on her face, I want to slap it off.
I know. Charmaine really. She's like, okay. So this is, and she's looking her up and down. So this is my competition. Because I don't know that besides the dinner, like she didn't see her as much competition at that point. I think she was just a curiosity at that point. But now that her and Jack are not together, knowing that she's pregnant, he didn't come running back to her to like make things right or get back to, like, there was none of that.
Nope.
So now she's looking at Mel in a very, very different way.
Yeah. But she's looking at Mel by saying that it's that look that says, I may have lost Jack for now, but I got something to bring him back.
I got leverage, and don't you think I'm going to use it?
Oh, yeah.
No.
And that's why I want to slap that smirk off her face. I know. Because she's very smirky, and I am not enjoying the smirkiness, let me tell you.
And Mel, who is lovely as always.
Always so lovely and pleasant.
Right?
Oh, my God.
I mean, she's like, okay, I have two ways I could go about this. He wasn't her man when this happened. It happened before they had a date or a kiss or anything. So, I mean, what is she going to do? I mean, she's already basically told him, I'm done. Like, I'm not going to do this with you. You're having a baby with another woman, and it is what it is. There's nothing you can change about it. So she sits down on the edge of a chair and making, oh my gosh, like how hard is this to make like idle conversation, like pleasantries? Oh, so do you work around here? And she's like, yeah, I work over on Main Street. She's like, oh, nice. You like it? Oh, the girls are nice and I make a decent living. And she's like, oh, great. And she's like, well, it was nice to see you. And she just wants to get out of there. And Charmaine's like, uh-huh. And then, of course, Mel has to say, well, congratulations on the baby. And Charmaine says, I just wanted you to know that I didn't plan this.
And Mel says, I didn't think you did.
And then Charmaine's like, I didn't think I could even get pregnant. It's not necessarily how I wanted things to go, but I'm grateful. Now, I bet you that cuts Mel so deep in her heart because that's all she ever wanted was to have a baby.
Exactly.
And this woman who is now pregnant with the man that she has a crush on and likes, smitten by, just randomly gets pregnant. It's like everything that she could have wanted, someone else just got by surprise.
Right. Well, you and I have had this conversation on many occasions about, people who wanting babies and can't have them. And there are people who just need to look at
they stand next to their husband and get pregnant. Yeah, I know. It's so many times.
So, as I said, Charmaine has this smirky look on her face, which I want to slap because she's rubbing this in Mel's face, even though she's being very polite about it.
Well, and I mean, I think she genuinely thought that she probably was losing her chance to ever have kids because if Jack didn't want to be with her, that means she'd have to like literally find somebody else and start all over again, which probably not the biggest thing she wanted to do.
Well, not only that, there's not a whole lot of
there's not a lot of men. No. But
most of them are married.
But I think that she's genuinely surprised she's pregnant, genuinely happy that she's pregnant, even though the road is going to be a lot harder for her because Jack's not going to be on it with her. But I mean, in a way, it's like good for her that she gets this, but the circumstances.
He's hoping that Jack is eventually going to come around.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So
and Mel, just being the gracious person that she is, I'm sure that you and Jack are going to be wonderful parents. It's yeah. And of course, Charmaine, this is where this pleasant conversation takes a little bit of a turn. She's like, yeah, it's a little more complicated than that. She's like, I've seen the way he looks at you, and let me tell you, in the 2 years that we were together, he has never looked at me like that.
Well, you know what? I'm glad she's honest about that.
And even Mel says, look, it's not about me. Like, this doesn't have anything to do with me. This is between you and Jack. If he doesn't look at you the way he looks at me, then that's nothing she can. I mean, she can't help that. She can't help who she is. I mean,
right. You can't help who you fall in love with.
Right.
The old saying
and you can't help who doesn't fall in love with you. You know?
And I don't want Jack to come back to me because of his damn sense of honor.
Yeah.
What the hell did you? That's not true. Because
she'd take him. She would take him in a heartbeat. Honor, no honor. Like if he said, okay, fine, we can get married and raise a baby. She'd be like, yes, Jack, of course.
If she really felt that way, she would have never put she was pregnant in the letter. She would have gone about her business and lived there in Clear River. And it's not until she was ballooning out and somebody happened to tell Jack while passing by his bar that, oh, Charmaine's having a baby, that Jack would have found out. So that bullshit that
I think I feel like she needed to tell him, and I feel like the letter, she needed to tell him. But I feel like this whole thing she says about it has to, I don't want him to come back because of his honor. It has to be his choice. I think initially she did really feel that way because she wants him to want her. And I think once she realizes that that's not the case, I think that's when things take a turn. Because initially I feel like she gave him the opportunity to think about it, think about what you want, and hoping that he would come, because I don't know that he's come to the conclusion with her yet. I don't think that they've really discussed it quite yet.
Oh, no. There's no discussion about how this is all going to go about.
Oh, we know how it's going to go about. But I think in her mind, she still is holding on to that little glimmer of hope that maybe he'll change his mind and come back. And that's why she's like, it has to be his choice. I don't want him to come back to me because of his honor. I want him basically to come back to me because he loves me, thinking that there's a small microscopic chance that could still be true, knowing that he looks at her like... looks at Mel like he's never looked at Charmaine. So, I mean, in a way, she's hoping, but I think the reality sets in real fast. That's not going to happen. That's never going to happen. And Mel is just like, well, and then she has to do the last dig. It's never going to happen as long as you're around. I mean, what's Mel to say to that? And she tries to say something, and it's like, it's not even worth it. It's not even worth it. What?
Yeah, but Charmaine walks off on her when she says
true,
that, so
but she could have said something. But you know what? What is she going to say? You're the one that's pregnant.
No, she can't say anything at this point.
It's up to Jack. She's done. I mean, in her mind, she's done with Jack. So she's just trying to be, trying to line. I guess I look at it as she's trying to bow out gracefully. Like, wish them well. Good luck. Yeah. Hope you have a happy life with your baby. You and Jack will be great parents. And regardless of the fact that he looks at you not the way that he looks at me and all of that.
Mel has always been gracious. Mm-hmm. Been tolerable. She takes all the crap that she gets from...
She always takes the high road.
From, all the crap that Cole put her through with
and
that
Doc
house.
Put her through, yep.
She is very gracious. And I could say right now, I'll be honest, I don't possess any of that graciousness.
No, you don't. You do. I do. I know, but you don't.
I do not possess
any. Nope,
of
you tell it like it is. I mean, I tell it like it is, but I can do it in such a nice way.
No, yeah, you know how to sugarcoat it. I don't know how to do that.
I know.
And this is why I have to be careful what I say, because it's, for
Sometimes you don't
me,
even have to help what you say. Sometimes it's written all over your face.
yeah, that's also true. My face is very expressive, and people tend to know what I feel without having me to say a lot of words. Um, and I have to say, I would not be as gracious. I have to say that. But you and Mel have that quality of just being gracious people, and dittos to you, character. Because my character, oh hell no. So come to a scene where we have cars going up a dirt road, as they would say, in the middle of nowhere.
It looks like Calvin has confronted Brady, and there's a whole bunch of people around him, and
wait, what I don't understand is they know they're meeting Brady. Why is it there are all these men with guns? I mean, who did?
I think it's in case, because Calvin is like the big dog, right? And everyone's there to protect the big dog. So just in case Brady starts anything, because they don't know Brady yet. They know he's a hothead. They know he's Jack's little, errand boy or whatever. And they know he's military. So they don't know him yet. So it's sort of like a protective type thing. It's like, we have guns, so don't try anything, just in case you're thinking about it.
Yes, so
I think that's what that's about.
And there's always some idiot who feels like, he wants to cock the gun and put it in the back of Brady. In the back of my mind, I'm going, you're about to get an ass whipping.
Well, and I think it's a test. It was a test, which he passed, but I think it was a test to see how he would react in a certain situation, because this is sort of like, I see this as Calvin auditioning Brady for a job. Like this is his interview. Like, your resume is what it is you do in this situation and what I see of you. And
how you
handle yourself. And Brady turns around and he grabs the gun from the guy, and he's got it. He's got the guy down, and all the other guys are around him. And he's like, I got a lot of ex-military guys working for me. So he's like, what? You work in weed? And he was like, well, the group I work for, it supports every town around here, including a lot of the law enforcement, and I can count on all the ones in the surrounding areas, for security and distribution. And he goes, but the only one that isn't on board. And Brady's like, yeah, I know, Virgin River. And he's like, maybe you can help me with that. So Brady's like, maybe. He's thinking about it. So now we see Mel, and she's driving down the street in the evening, probably on her way back from Clear River. Her eyes are very teary. So teary that she needs to pull over. Like, she can't drive anymore, because when you're crying, you shouldn't be driving. Now this is and it's raining, because the car is wet. I don't think it's actively raining, but the car is wet and the ground is wet, and so there's rain. So we do a flashback.
And this is where now she's telling him we should just pull over and wait until the rain stops. And he's like, it's okay, I can do this. I've got it.
He thinks he took a wrong turn. They might be lost. And she's like, look, why don't we just go home?
And he's like, it took me 2 weeks to get this reservations. And she's like, I don't care about that. And he's like, sweetie, we can we not do this? And because he's anticipating where this conversation's going to go.
Right. And and he just wants to avoid it. He just wants to get to dinner and have some dinner. Like, let's just have some dinner.
Yeah. And he's like, for one night. And she's like, listen, I know, okay?
And she's like, you don't want a surrogate. I get it. That's fine. Okay, I can agree with that. She's like, but can we do just one more round of IVF? Just one. Yeah. And he is already done. I mean...
Yeah, you can see the look on his face. He's like, I don't want to have this conversation again.
Especially while I'm driving.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it's when you're driving and someone is arguing with you, you are a captive audience.
Oh, yes.
There's nothing you can do. And it's not fun.
It's not a good place to have a conversation.
No.
Because because I have to say that person has you in a vulnerable position. Because you are not at your wit's end, because you're trying to concentrate on the road.
Right.
And she's using like a little bit of a tactic here, where she says, you promised me we could have another child. She's pushing it to the point where she's making him feel bad. He won't give her what she wants. And the look on Mark's face is like, please, let's not do this. Let's just not do this.
She's like, because she had said, you promised me that after we lost our baby that we could have another one. And he was like, yeah, I know. But she's a midwife. She's a nurse practitioner. And she tries to explain to him, look, I see this all the time. Sometimes you just have to keep trying because there's always a chance. There's always a chance. And I know this to be true because I had multiple IVFs, like a lot. So, I mean, my oldest was IVF number 9 after number 8 was a miscarriage. So, some people give up at 2 and 3 and 4. And sometimes you feel like if we can just one more, then, maybe it'll happen. And I think that's where she is. She's like, you just have to keep trying. There's a chance. And he is at the point where
but he's
done.
At his wit's end. He just wants his wife back. That's all he wants.
And the important thing to him is his marriage. He's like, that's what's important. And she's like, no. He's like, if we don't stop this, we're going to lose us. And she's like, but I don't want to stop trying. And he's like, and then this is where I don't like this. He gets dismissive. He's like, you're not thinking straight. You're just not thinking straight. It's like, she's thinking perfectly straight. She just wants what she wants. And what she wants is not what you want. So it's not that she's not thinking straight. She's just not thinking the same as you.
And then this is where the kickback comes in. And she says, I think we need a break. And then he says, that's a good idea. And basically now they're on 2 different tracks now.
Right.
Because what she thinks he needs a break means and what he thinks it means are 2 different things.
Right.
Because at this point now, she says to him that, no. Basically,
she wants a break from the marriage. He wants a break from trying to have a baby.
Right. And he now he's got that look on his face like, are you going to leave me? And basically she says, we don't want the same things anymore, Mark. And this man is now, what the hell just happened between, a minute ago and now? And he's like,
I've always just wanted you. Like, I was perfectly happy if it was always just you and me. And she feels like, he's like, but I love you. And she's like, well, love it just isn't enough anymore. And he's sorry. He's apologizing.
And at that same time, he reaches over to grab her and he's not looking at the road. And a car runs right into the driver's side of the car.
Yeah.
But she screams out, Mark.
Yeah.
And he gets hit on his side. And we come back to now present time, and she's sitting in her car and she is crying her eyes out. The music is playing, which is so apropos.
I know. It's very sad.
It's very sad. And she is just
God, the memories of that. It's like, and she just always has. That's why Joey is telling her it's not your fault, because she takes full responsibility for her husband dying because they were arguing in the car trying to figure things out, and that's when the accident happened. So she feels responsible for his death.
Because she feels if she didn't put him in such a vulnerable position
and didn't push and didn't keep at him, that they maybe wouldn't have gotten into an accident. So now we're at Hope and Doc's, and Doc has brought Hope some tea and something to eat, and he's hoping it's on a nice little tray, and he's like, I made you some tea and a sandwich and I can leave it out here for now. And she's like, no, come in. She's just distraught, and she's just kind of sitting there.
Yeah, she's in her PJs. She's sitting on the bed with her nice country quilt.
Oh yes, it's very, very country. And he says to her, I thought that the divorce was what you wanted. And I think this heart attack of hers really scared her.
So I think, remember when we talked about when they first came home from the hospital, and you had said that when she was asking for this divorce, that you could tell she was somehow reluctant, but at the same time, she felt she needed to make a change.
Right.
So now confessing it to Doc and saying, because of the heart attack,
she got scared.
She got scared. And so now she's rethinking it.
And the heart attack, because she is like a force of nature.
Oh, yes, she is.
She feels like that the heart attack and how it made her feel and what it did to her has now made her feel weak. And that's a very unfamiliar being vulnerable. Very unfamiliar.
She's not like being vulnerable. She has always been large and in charge.
Yeah.
And that heart attack did not help.
And she thought she wanted the divorce. I mean, she has believed for 20 years that she wanted the divorce. And now that she got it, like all she has to do is sign the papers. It's like she can't.
Yeah. Well, the fact that she held on to those divorce papers for 20 years told me she couldn't divorce him then.
Well, and he never even knew she had them. That's the thing. She got them drawn up and held on to them.
Yeah. You can tell that I think she talks about it, but the actual getting it done is something she can't go through.
Right. And so she confesses something to Doc, something she never told him. That
and now we find a whole different side of this, where this is caused the divorce. The actions for the divorce now come to light.
Well, we know that he had a quick affair with Charmaine's mom, and that's what started the whole problem with them, and that's why she wanted the divorce. But then after that, when Charmaine's mom was sick because she had cancer and she died, Hope said, we had found out that Hope and Rachel, which was Charmaine's mom, were friends for 30 years. So not only was this someone she knew, it was her best friend that had an affair with her husband. So now you're losing your husband and your best friend. I mean, that's tragic. But when Rachel got sick and she asked Hope to come to the hospital because she wanted to talk to her and probably make amends or something, Hope refused to go. And
I don't understand, and maybe because you and I have a different relationship, and I have a different, I don't understand. I hear about this all the time about women having affairs with their best friend's husbands.
No.
It's like, really?
I mean, it's a small town. Maybe the pickings were slim. I don't know.
I don't know. I'm like, I don't understand that. I'm like,
yeah, I don't get that either. No, I don't get it either. I don't understand that. I would
never give.
Isn't that like girl code or something? Like you just don't mess with your friend's boyfriend, husband, whatever, brother even.
No, I mean his brother maybe, but no, not the husband. Oh no. It's like a unwritten code.
I don't know.
That is like off territory.
But you know what? It happens. Unfortunately.
It happens a lot.
Yeah, it does. And so Rachel, Charmaine's mom, wanted to see Hope at the hospital when she was dying, and Hope refused to go. She feels like she regrets giving her the opportunity to make amends, and it's something that the choice that she regretted for the rest of her life. She will regret that forever because she didn't even give her the chance to say anything. I mean, maybe she was going to say she's sorry, maybe she wasn't, but she'll never know. And Vernon, even though he has apologized like for 20 years, he one more time apologizes for breaking their wedding vows and for betraying her. And I think this is the first time that because she's now looking at things from a different perspective with everything that's gone on with Jack and her heart attack and the reality of life kind of been thrown in her face, she finally is in a place where she can accept Doc's apology.
The way he looks at her,
I know. It's so sweet.
It's so sweet. Because now we see a relationship between an older couple, because so far all
rare.
Our relationships,
so rare.
Yeah, it's very rare. But the majority of the time, as we've noticed in the show, and that's fine because we're all into Jack and Mel. But it's nice to see the dynamics of an older couple's relationship.
But even Jack and Mel, I mean, to be fair, there's a lot of shows with a lot of couples that are a lot younger than Jack and Mel.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's kind of unusual in a way to have this kind of relationship, this kind of all the stuff that's coming and stuff that's already happened and all of that with a couple who are in their 40s.
That's true.
I mean, that's unusual.
Yeah, because generally it's the 20-somethings.
Even the 30-somethings. I mean, when they started the show, I think the actors were late 30s and early 40s. And now it's been a few years.
Yeah, they're all in their 40s now.
Yes, everybody's in their 40s, but
except
the oldest couples and all the older ladies. Sure. But the main couple being in their 40s is a very unusual choice for a show to make as their main.
But I also think the fact is that they don't look like they're in their 40s. If you see what I'm saying also.
True, but we know they're older. I mean, they talk
Yeah.
about 20 years in the military and college and several years working here and there. So that they're not, because most shows, the characters are late 20s, early 30s.
Oh, yeah.
They focus on that demographic. And I think it's very refreshing that they choose an older, just a slightly older, like reality. That's reality. That's what, that's the world.
That is the world. So it's nice to see that relationship between Doc and
it's
Hope.
really nice to see Doc and Hope. I think it's been nice to watch that evolve from the Bickersons to whatever this is going to be. So he says to her, there's pretty much nothing that I wouldn't do to make you happy. And I mean, it's like, if she wants the divorce, she can have the divorce. If she doesn't want the divorce, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
He loves her no matter what. I mean, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. He's smitten with her, and even though she drives him bloody crazy.
And he says he's never stopped loving her, and it didn't matter.
Well, this is why when they had all this bickering going on when Mel first came here, you knew it was a couple that cared for each other.
Exactly.
It's just
they had a weird way of showing it.
Exactly. We just didn't know what was going on and why they were the way they were.
And then
so it's
But now we know. Now we know that there's a lot of animosity and bad feelings and shenanigans. Mm-hmm. And she shares that she loves him too. But I think she always did. It's like she just couldn't let herself love him because she was still too mad.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
I think that's what it was.
And I have to say,
the cute little kissing.
Hope holds on to a grudge like my aunts and my mother do. That some people know how to hold on to a grudge. And other people are just like, you know what? I can't hold on to people like that. And then she puts a kiss on him.
I know. I'm like, okay, Grandma and Grandpa are going to have a good time. They're so cute, though. They're adorable. They really are.
They are indeed. So we come to now Preacher driving up to Paige's house, and Paige's front door is slightly ajar.
Mm-hmm. And he's worried. His instincts are...
Exactly. His instincts now kick in, and he is looking for her, and he's making himself known as he comes to the house. He's like, hey, guys, it's Preacher, and he's looking around.
There's a phone ringing, so...
Yeah.
Now, why aren't they answering it? Nobody's answering him. Nobody's calling back.
He's very concerned at this point that her phone is there.
Very unusual. He's worried. And then he sees on the floor there's droplets of blood, which is very concerning because knowing that she's afraid of her ex-husband and that he is a threat, it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. So now we're back at the cabin, and Jack is standing outside waiting for Mel, who gets home, and she's not happy. She's like, you shouldn't be here. I mean, she's just making a beeline for the door. And he's right on her heels, and she's like, look, it's been a long day. I'm tired. I don't want to talk to you right now. And he is going to just try. He's like, look, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. And she's like, you know how embarrassing it was to have to hear that from Hope. I mean, he knows. He's not stupid. He's like, yeah, I get it. But that's why I wanted to tell you myself. And I wanted to tell you in person. But she is like, that made me feel like I couldn't trust you. And that's a big thing with her. Having people that she can rely on, that she can trust, that she can confide in. She doesn't have many people in her life. I mean, her only family is her sister.
Yeah, she has a very small group.
Very, very small.
And so you can tell
he
so
looks
sorry.
like he wants to cry. He's like, I know, I screwed up. And he's like, look, you can trust me. It's like she wants to trust him. It's like you can, everything in her body, everything in her being wants to believe him. But it's like the words, the actions, the doubt, it's all there. You know, what do you do?
The doubt is overwhelming her because, she was hesitant to get involved with him in the first place.
Yeah.
And then she did. And then look what happens.
Exactly. And then she has to share with him why. Why is this so difficult? And she's like, it's not just Charmaine. It's not. She's like, look, a few years ago, I had a stillborn baby. And she's doing this through tears. She's like, and now I can't have children. And he is just like there are no words. Like, what do you say to that except I'm sorry? I mean, what else do you say? And she's like, and her having a baby is something that I can't ever have. And it's just too much. I mean, she can't handle it. Him asking her to deal with it is too much. And he comes to her, and this is where the begging and the pleading, like, he can't help how he feels. He's like,
he says, I've never felt this way for anyone in my life.
Didn't even know I could.
And she's like, stop.
He's like, from the moment I saw you, I knew. And she's like, okay, you need to, like, I can't, like, she's starting to feel that way too.
Yeah.
But
him expressing how he felt would have felt good, a couple hours
before. The day before. Let's talk just one day. Would have been great. Yeah. That would have been awesome. Great timing. Let's get that out of the way now. But now it's like, it's almost like it's too late, you know? And he's like, I can't stop. I can't stop how I feel.
And he says, I'm falling in love with you, which now throws her. And she's like, don't say that. He's like, what I'm asking is a lot.
Yeah.
But he said, I can't change your past, but I want to be part of your future. Oh, sweet.
I know. And she's like, she's thinking about it. Like, she's looking at him going, I wish this would be so much easier if you didn't get some chick pregnant. Like, really? Dude.
Up some, and now you're expressing your love. And she's like, I just need time.
And Jack, take all the time you need. Whatever you need. I'm not going anywhere. So I think she's like, okay. And he just slowly backs away. And he's like, I'll call you tomorrow. She's like, yeah. And she's thinking about it. And he's like, look, everything is going to be okay. Like, he's hoping everything will be okay. But
Mel is famous for running away. This is the problem.
Yeah, that's her MO. And as soon as he shuts the door, she loses it. Like, she cannot.
Yeah. She breaks down and starts to cry.
Yeah, she can't even handle it. Because just when she thought, like she said, she moved to this town, and she thought maybe she was ready for an ounce of happiness, and this is what happens. It's almost like she shouldn't even try anymore, because everything she tries just gets trampled, and so why bother?
And just the tears, she cries so well.
They're real tears. Every time she's cried, it has been actually crying. She gets herself to the place where there are real emotions and she cries. So it looks real because it is. I mean, she's also a good actress, but she does really cry every time.
He's just devastated, and he is just like, you can tell his heart is broken too.
And I mean, in a way, he's like, okay, she's gonna let me call her tomorrow, and she heard what I had to say, and she didn't yell at me or throw me out or tell me no again. So I think in a way he feels like there's a sliver of hope, right? Like a sliver. Like, he's like, okay, I'm not down for the count yet. Like, I might still have a chance.
I'm not quite in the doghouse as I thought I was.
I'm standing on the porch of the doghouse, though. That's for sure.
So we come back and we see her in her cabin, and she's packing her suitcase.
All of her suitcases.
Yes. And at this point, she calls her sister, and she tells her sister she's coming home. It's just like, oh my God. And she's crying, and you can tell she's devastated. She's done for the time being. She's just done.
She just can't do it anymore.
She's got to get out of there.
And that was the end of season 1. Can you imagine having to wait a year to see what happens? Like,
I do, because I had to wait a year.
I didn't watch the show then. I'm really glad I didn't have to deal with that. I came on a little bit later, but that's okay. But I'm glad I didn't have to wait. I mean, sometimes every episode there's a cliffhanger, and so you fortunately only have to wait 37 seconds. But yeah, even if it was like on network TV where you'd have to wait a week, even that's hard. Yeah. There's a lot of cliffhangers, but that's a doozy. So he's thinking he's got a chance, even as small as it is, still
she's
is,
packing up,
and she's going
packing
home.
up her suitcase to go home.
And she's not telling anybody. Like, she's going to slip out in the middle of the night. So I'm sure when Doc gets to the office the next morning, he's got a message on the machine saying, I'm done.
Yeah. And Jack's going to be devastated, so it's going to be interesting to see what season 2 brings.
Yes. Even though we already know.
Yeah, we already know, but
it's fun to hash it out.
So anyway.
Well, thank you for season 1 of Virgin River. This was fun. 10 episodes done. Only 44 more to go. And then the new season will be coming out eventually. And then we'll just keep going.
Thank you, Tracy.
Thank you, Gigi. Talk to you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.